There's a lot of diversity in the Saskatchewan beer scene. In the last 5 years, we've seen an explosion of new breweries, including yours truly at Rebellion. But one of the original outfits that has deep roots in our province and has a great story to tell is Great Western Brewing. They started up in 1989, and I'm sure you've heard their story about the original 16, so I'm not going to go too far into it. But what's really interesting is they're producing 40 million cans of beer annually. That's huge. But to put that in perspective, I'll compare it to ourselves. Rebellion, last year in our very first year of canning, we produced 400,000 cans. So when you're talking about levels of size, that's huge orders of magnitude in terms of difference. But the awesome thing is, all this beer is being brewed right here in Saskatchewan. That's jobs, that's taxes being paid, that's people making good right here in our province. Amanda Butt is the brewmaster at Great Western. Her background's kind of neat. I'm going to get her to explain it in her own words, but she's a biochemist, and she got her master's in brewing in Scotland, which I think is super cool. And rumor has it, she's been working hard to develop some new recipes and launch some new beers at Great Western. I can't wait to pick her brain and find out what she's been up to. Amanda, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
How's it going?
It's going pretty good.
So before we get too far into talking about beer, we're going to talk about beer.
Sweet.
But it's going to be Black Bridge's Uno IPA.
Awesome.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Have you had this one before? Mm-mm. It smells really good.
Oh, it's awesome. It's got like that tropical, sweaty fruit, hits you in the face. That's rad. I dig it.
It's really soft.
They did a good job. No, that's juicy the whole way through. That's awesome.
Oh, yeah. I just keep putting my nose in. Would you drink it again?
I'm going to continue drinking it. We haven't stopped.
Yeah, it's a really nicely balanced beer. Good tropical.
Well, now I kind of want to Google it. What else do they tell you?
It's one of their highest rated beers, and
Okay.
it's one of their most popular IPAs. It doesn't stick around very long. It seems to move pretty fast. I've had it a couple times before, and this actually tastes different than it was last year.
Okay.
So
Well, that's fair. I mean, brew it small, keep it fresh. That's the way to do an IPA.
I'd recommend this to anyone. If it was your first IPA, I'd say try it out.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, I'm going to take some home with me.
Do you guys get a lot of Black Bridge up in Saskatoon?
We do. I like
CKO?
their milk stout is right on. Like, they do an awesome job with that.
It's my favorite of their beers.
Yeah, they do it so well.
I think he just nailed that recipe the very first time out. And
Is that the first version out?
I think so. Like, I'm sure he's tweaked it since then just because of the nature of brewing,
Sure.
but I haven't noticed big changes in it. I've been drinking it for years.
Okay. Well, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Good.
Like, power to the team, power to Clayton. It's a really good beer.
Sweet.
And brewed in Swift Current.
Yeah.
Which is cool. Like,
Right?
we're just going to truck this beer halfway across the province.
But they're doing a good job.
They are.
I dig it.
I'm really proud of the beers they're putting out. Like, I had nothing to do with them, but I'm happy to drink them.
Yeah, this is pretty sweet.
It makes me happy that the Saskatchewan craft beer scene has beer like theirs, which is way up there. You don't have to be like, you know.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think for me coming into Saskatchewan, it's like you don't really know what to expect. And I've been just blown away by the talent of brewers across the province. And we don't have many yet, and I feel like there's a lot more coming, which is great. It's good to see it grow. It's still very much in its infancy, but there's a lot of talent here.
Let's start at the beginning for you. How did you get into brewing?
Oh, kind of by accident. I was doing my undergrad, and like the further I got into it, the more things I realized I didn't want to do with it. So professor over a summer course sat a few of us down and said, like, I know you guys all want to end up in like pharmacy or med school or what have you, but we're all really on the path to be brewers. And it never occurred to us that we could get paid to make all the beer we were drinking. So I ended up volunteering at a brewery and learned very early on, as long as you don't mess things up too badly, people will gladly pay you $0 to help out. So I'd get up before class and I'd go work at a brewery, and I said, if I can do this, then I will absolutely pay for more education to continue. And I loved it. Like, you'd get up at 6 a.m. and we'd go rake yeast and take pumps apart and then go clean tanks. It was a bigger brewery that I worked in. It had this old 70s Steinecker brew house that was actually on gears. So you like push a clutch and change gears to Vorlauf, and like it was just super cool. So that's really my first like foray into brewing.
And then I was reading you went to Scotland?
Yeah. So
How does that work?
Right. So I'm getting close to finishing my undergrad, and I can see from having volunteered a lot of men, a lot of engineers, not a lot of women, not a lot of life science. And so I really felt like if I wanted a shot at being in industry, I had to keep going with education. The options that I was looking at the time were UC Davis, Harriet Watt, and Weinsteffen. And I said, I don't speak German. That would be so awesome, but it's probably too technical for me. The U.S. is right there. I've visited. Like, I bet it'd be really cool to learn from Charlie Bamforth, and he is super fun to listen to go lecture. Like, if you've ever had a chance to go listen to him, he's amazing. But I thought Scotland would just be so cool. So that's where we went. I fell in love with cask ale and Scotch, and I got engaged there, and just like a lot of life happened in Scotland.
That's rad. What was the school's name in Scotland?
Harriet Watt.
Harriet Watt. Okay.
Yeah.
Because you had mentioned that, but I wanted to nail it down. I wasn't sure. Okay. So then what happens?
So then I came back to Canada, and I was working in a Staples copy center in Western Newfoundland, and I applied to my top 60 breweries across the country. I maybe got 5 calls back and 3 legitimate interviews. It was really tough. But I ended up working at Labatt. I felt like they were going to teach me how to be a manager, which is when I had started with, I guess it was Molson I was volunteering at. They would teach you a lot of technical stuff, but it's more of the soft skills. It's like, I've never managed a group of people in my life. I'd really like some help in informing that. So it was really great. It taught me a lot about obsession with quality and consistency. And so I know that it's easy to like thumb our nose at like the bigs, but there's an awful lot that I took away from that experience, and I wouldn't trade for the world. I left for my own reasons, and there's a certain level of consistency, and it's obsession with quality and detail that I haven't seen anywhere else to that scale. So yeah, I was there for 7 years, and then I was not loving my job, and my husband secretly, unbeknownst to me, applied for a brewing manager's position at R&D for Sam Adams.
On your behalf?
On my behalf, God love him. He's a big Pats fan, loves the Red Sox. He's a diehard Bruins fan. He felt like this was just the right fit for all of us. And I got a call at 6 a.m. from their recruiter, and I thought it was my alarm clock, so I hung up. But they called back a few minutes later, and I had no idea what they were talking about. Like, I was like, I didn't apply for any of this, but I'm just gonna I don't know what to do. And so he wakes up, he's like, oh yeah, by the way, last night while you were sleeping, like, here's what I did. And it's like, you can't do that to people. But it was great. Like,
how did Sam Adams take it when you were really confused and totally...
Dave was awesome. Dave, he thought I was living on the East Coast and found out I was living on the West Coast. So he thought he was calling it a sensible hour, and then was very apologetic that he was calling it not a sensible hour. But no, super nice guy. I flew out to meet the team, and it was awesome. Like, there was a few ex-Anheuser-Busch people there, but there was also someone like Dean Giannacostas, who's employee number 2 at the Boston Beer Company. He's been there since the start, and like to get to learn from him, and people like Bob Cannon, who's been there for 25, 30 years. Like, it's incredible. We sat around the room at one point with the brewing team, and we've got a really great group of staunch traditionalists, and then another great group of brewers who are just pushing the boundaries of all the things beer can be, and like marrying those two together. And we sat around and we tabulated up everybody's brewing experience. We had a century of brewing experience in the room. It was like, this is just too cool. Like, what an opportunity.
What were some of the things that they taught you?
I guess my first 3 weeks on the job, I brewed more beer styles than I had brewed in my 7 years with Labatt. So that was gigantic. I had a heart attack about sours because someone brought in Brett, and lacto. And in my world up to now, it's like, no, we tried really hard to kill all of these. I don't want them in here. So it was learning to play with more yeast and bacteria and things like that was awesome. We actually had a friend come in from the VLB, and he brewed a traditional Berliner Weiss with us.
What's a VLB?
It's a school in Berlin.
Okay.
So it's, oh God, I can't remember what it stands for. Sorry. Anyway, Kurt came in and we brought in like pallets of unmalted wheat, and we brewed this super traditional Berliner Weiss that we aged. I had the last one that I took with on its Berlinerversary in August. It was 3 years old, and it was fantastic. So like those are the fun projects that like we get to go and do. And they had a bunch of test equipment that you get from certain companies. They say, oh, it's only for whole cone hops. It's like, that's great. We're going to throw 800 pounds of frozen cherries in it, and then we'll tell you how good it works. So it was fun to be able to play like that.
So you're talking like hop backs or torpedoes?
Yeah, like hop rockets more. I can show you a picture later, but it's a giant hop gun, and it was made for whole cone hops, and the supplier kind of flipped out when we said we weren't putting just whole cone hops in it. So
why?
Well, because I don't think it was designed for that, so they were very worried. Like, we would say, oh my God, this thing doesn't work like it's supposed to, but like really we're just like throwing the kitchen sink out of it and like, let's just see how this goes and we'll let you know. But it was awesome.
And what did you take away from that kind of experience?
I think I learned to run till tackle, and I say that a lot up here. It's you just keep going till someone stops you, and if you can do something cool with that, or you can teach someone something new that they haven't already learned, like that's really the point, is kind of opening up people to all the things that beer can be.
Are you now in a role where you're teaching people? Has it flipped now, or are you still the student?
I think it's a bit of both. So the guys at Great Western, like there's 3 of the original 16 still there. Like they're incredible people. And so getting to learn the history of the business and the industry from them has been really lovely. And then there's some people who've been doing their jobs really well for a long time, but they don't have a lot of the why. And so being able to help fill that in and empower brewers to do more, it's like that's been really awesome as well.
I've heard that from some people where they just got told this is how you do it, but they didn't understand maybe the chemistry or the biology. And so
how do you make decisions when things go wrong if you don't understand what you're doing, right? Yeah.
You've just been told step, step, step.
Right.
So you get to kind of break that.
Well, that's it. And then if something goes wrong, you're stuck in step. And it doesn't feel good to say, I have no idea how to proceed next. Right? So if you have an idea of why you're doing, you can course correct for the most part on your own, and that's very empowering.
Who do you look up to today in terms of brewing? Like who are you kind of like inspired by?
I'm still really inspired by Jim Cook and Dave Grinnell. So I think it was so badass for the Boston Beer Company to launch Boston Lager as their flagship. Like it is so not at the time like anything else that was out there, and here these guys are saying like, no, like this is ours, like we're going forward with Boston Lager, and if you don't like it, like too fucking bad. So today it would be a very sessionable beer, but back then it certainly wasn't. 30 IBUs and it's 4.8% ABV, but it's quite dark as well, so it's really rich and complex. It's actually, for profile matching, it's the hardest beer I've ever brewed.
Why?
It took me the longest to get it right.
Why is that?
Like I've done Budweiser, and I've done Bud Light, and I've done Busch, and I've done all the seasonals for Sam, but Boston Lager, it's decoction brewed, it's also krausened, it's dry hopped. It's a bit of a dance in the brew house to get it right, and it's tricky. So Boston Lager would have been the only beer that came out of the Boston Beer Company that wasn't brewed in Boston. It started in Jim Cook's kitchen. So when I got there, they're like, we need you to profile match this back, and it took me 6 goes at it to get it right and have it disappear in a lineup at the other breweries where Boston Lager is brewed.
You said decoxonization?
Decoction.
Okay, explain to me what that means.
So basically this is taking out of your mash tun. You'll take a percentage of the mash out, and I can go into kind of why that was traditionally done, but we'll take it out and we'll boil it. So you're denaturing all the enzymes, you're caramelizing what's there, and it's kind of a rapid reduction, and then you'll put it back in. And so what that does, it adds an awful lot of flavor and character, and it leaves a lot of the sugar still on the table that the yeast can't get at.
The yeast can't get at because it makes
they can't
it so
metabolize
the
it.
yeast can't eat the sugar.
Right. So we've now made something that's very tasty for us that they can't take away and turn into alcohol. So it helps leave that body and that color development as well.
does it add like a sweet and creamy character to the beer? Or?
It can. It depends kind of what else is going on. Things that kind of add and layer back in would be something like krausening, where you're fresh wording back into a nearly finished fermentation, kind of allowing a secondary fermentation to take over at a different temperature.
I know what krausening is.
Okay.
But let's break it down in plain English for people who might not know.
Sure. So krausening is when you have a fermentation that's nearly finished, generally. You've got a certain amount of sugar left on the table, and you will transfer in freshly yeasted wort. So you basically start a secondary fermentation, but you're usually doing it at a colder temperature, and this is really for like getting out different esters depending on the yeast profile, or kind of just layering in other flavors that you wouldn't normally get if you just let a fermentation go to completion. And it allows for lagering as well. So when I say lagering, I mean just maturation in a cold tank where you allow beer to kind of mellow and settle.
Cool.
Yeah.
Makes sense to me.
Nice.
You have the education, you have the inspiration, and then how did you get over to Great West?
Yeah, I got tapped on the shoulder, and I didn't know the story. In fact, when I looked it up, I thought they were still Molson Carling owned, and so I came up to meet everybody, and they told me the story of the original 16, and I just thought, how do you not get behind a group of people who basically, like, they faced their jobs being eliminated. There was no other option. They were looking for buyers, and then I don't know about you, but I don't know if I work with 15 close enough friends to pull a mortgage in on a brewery and like call that like, this is my life savings and I am putting all of this together and depending on all of you to do the same because we're going to keep the brewery going. And like, they've worked in the brewery, but they've not run a company. And it's just, to me, it's incredible that it's still going.
And brewing is vastly different from managing people or
it's wildly
books.
different. Like you might be really great at filtration, but have you ever done payroll? Like they're very different skill sets. So it's incredible that they were able to do that and keep going in a really delicate time, fragile time when, I mean, things could have really gone poorly for them. So I'm really proud to be part of that. It
does seem to be a little bit of a leap of faith, a little bit of an act of insanity.
Yeah, I mean, you're dabbling with the line there. It's a little bit of both.
Well, we think about what it's taken for us at Rebellion over the last 4.5, 5 years.
It's an uphill battle.
It's looking back on it, I'm like, was this really the smartest decision? But I think I was lucky enough to not know what I know now, to make that jump, to say,
sure,
hey, this sounds like a really great idea, and I'm really excited and passionate about it.
That's good. More of that. We need more of that.
I'm not saying it's bad. I'm just saying I'm lucky I didn't know what I was leaping into. So these guys back in the 80s, when there's much more prohibition laws and much more red tape and rules, it seems like it's even scarier, like a bigger leap.
It is, and I think when I go up into the brew house, there's an I-beam up by the kettle, and they've got every year that they've been going since '89, the number of brews they've done every year is kind of written in marker down the pencil or down the beam, and you can see it just really slow out of the gate, and then it starts to climb a few years out, and it's like, that's exciting to see. Like if you go in every day and like that's what you're looking at, you're like, we've come a long way. So it's cool.
So what's new for Great West?
We just launched our Helles Half Acre. So that's about as Reinheitsgebot a beer as I could figure out to make. It's got all malts, and any specialty malts that are in it are either German or derived from German techniques. We flew in some noble hops to throw in there as well, because while we're at it, we should. We tried to make a mid-strength lager that doesn't taste like a mid-strength lager. So I've brought some for you guys to have for later if you want. But
Paul was saying he got a taste of it and it was like super clean.
Okay, good.
That was his first impression.
That's what we want.
I haven't tasted it yet.
Okay.
When I go back to the tap room, we'll have to crack one?
We can.
Okay.
Okay.
And we'll just back it up a second. You said Reinheitsgebot, which is a German beer purity law.
Right. So
why did that inspire this? Or did you mention that?
I think lager's in our wheelhouse, and we were able to do just some very traditional German techniques in the brewery. And it's like, well, why not? Like, why not play to your strength and do this? So we wanted to do something cool with a lower alcohol. We see that trend coming up. you certainly see the laws changing around driving under the influence, and so we want people to be able to enjoy a beer without worrying about that. Like, I'm not saying go and drink twice as much, but I'm just saying if you're looking for just a very relaxing evening and you want one, like, it's 2.6% ABV. Like, it's really easy to drink and really light. So
we were seeing that too. The driving laws, the new standards for drinking and driving was driving our decisions and driving consumers' choices on the kinds of beer they wanted to pick up or drink and enjoy at the tap room or take home.
Right. So your take home, you're probably picking up your higher hitters, but like for staying here, you'll probably pick up something in the 4-ish range.
So it's interesting to see your team is seeing the similar effects that we are.
Yep.
Do you think it was affecting you maybe at a bigger scale? Because you guys are kind of like a big ship moving in one direction. So when
it's funny that you say we're a big ship moving in one direction.
I mean,
this is actually like the smallest brewing company I've ever worked for. So like comparatively, the brewery I worked at in Creston makes about 1 million hectoliters a year, and we do 175,000. So like, and that's one of the smallest breweries in the Labatt family, which all of them together make the same volume as one of the smallest breweries in the U.S. Like, it's crazy when you think about the scale of that company. So. Yeah. So we did see that. I think, bars felt it too. Like, people weren't coming in, and then you had things like Skip the Dishes come in where people aren't staying and having a drink. They're taking out or staying home, and if the winter is flipping cold, no one wants to go out anyway. So you see that. So we're trying to round out our offerings and appeal to a broader consumer base.
You have seen and done quite a bit, traveled the world. What's your favorite memory?
I think my favorite in recent times is probably a few years back. It was my birthday, and I was traveling with Dave Burnell, who's VP of Brewing and Quality for Sam Adams, and I think he's retiring soon. And he doesn't know this. It was my birthday when we were there. And his wife is from the Netherlands, and so he's kind of been around Belgium quite a bit. We went there for Trends in Brewing in 2016. And we spent 4 days just going into taverns and just drinking a plethora of different beers. And I found a beer, actually I brought for tonight for the Lady Rebels thing. Before this trip, not a fan of Belgian beers, because in my mind, what I had learned at school, and the first one that I tried is like, these are sour, they are open vat, and again with the bacteria, and it's like, I'm itchy just looking at the beer, I can't do it. And I completely changed my tune, completely. So I totally believe that just because you try it once and you don't like it doesn't mean you hate it. Keep your mind open. And so it was awesome to go and do that.
One of our owners, he named his daughter after Belgian beer. Yeah,
no way.
Like, he's obsessed with Belgian. He loves that crazy stuff.
Cool.
Yeah, Evan. He's got a really eclectic palate and approach to beer.
Okay, neat.
In terms of home brewing. Some, like you were saying, some people want to do tried and true, stick to it.
Yep.
He's like, let's throw something wacky in there, like
love
super hot peppers or some experimental
Perhaps
vegetables.
this will work. Yeah, no, I love it. That's cool.
That's awesome. What's next for you?
We've just got our pilot system up. It's not totally running yet, so we're getting there. So that allows us a little more flexibility to play, because right now every batch of beer I make is 165 hectoliters, and so if you screw it up, it's quite expensive. This way, it's much smaller, and if I screw it up, it won't be as noticeable.
Say 175?
165.
165.
Yeah.
That's in comparison to us. We're doing 20.
Right.
So that's a lot of beer.
It's a lot of beer to mess up.
Screwing up.
Yeah.
How big is your test batch or your pilot?
Just a 1 heck.
Just 1 heck?
Yeah.
Okay, so you could do really, really quick.
Yeah.
Turn it around, iterate.
Yeah. Do some yeast trials. It's going to be fun.
So are you looking to, maybe you're going to do something really, really quick, like bang, 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 all these...
No, I think we're just going to be thoughtful about it. We've just launched Hellas. Prairie White's still new. We're just looking at some other options for the fall and start of next year. So anything I think I'm working on this year, I'll probably be looking at like next summer before we see it.
Rad. What's the one thing I maybe have forgotten to ask you that you've always wanted to be asked and never get told?
Oh, God. I don't know. I don't think... No. I've been asked some weird shit, so I think you're fine.
Any unique perspectives that maybe I'm blind spotting on?
Oh, I'm really stuck. I didn't expect that one. Oh, I know. It's like, here's a gift. Talk about whatever you want. I'm not sure. Can we address the elephant in the room?
What's that?
Can we talk about when I first moved here, I didn't know anybody. And then there was a bit of a shot across the bow from Rebellion saying that Great Western has hired a chemist to put chemicals in the beer. And I was like, man, I have not been here long enough to piss anybody off. Like, what is this?
Who said that?
I think it was Mark.
Really?
Yeah.
Was he being facetious?
I have no idea because he never wrote back after. And I was like, I don't know if this is a joke or like, because I don't know anybody. It's like, I don't know if this is serious or not. But actually, I met Mark almost a year ago and it was like, not at all like that tweet. So I was like, I don't know how to take that. Maybe Matt will know.
I'm sure it was firmly tongue-in-cheek.
Okay, perfect.
Because I was actually mentioning to Mark about how you're coming on the podcast, and he's like, fucking rad. He's like, they're totally lucky to have Amanda on their team.
Mark's a cool guy.
Yeah, he was just singing your praises in terms of your
thank you.
your background, and he's like, well, she's not screwing around. She was with Sam Adams in Boston.
Yeah, they'd have fired me long ago.
Yeah, he was just like, you've got a good pedigree. He's looking forward to see what you had to say.
Yeah, it's I like Saskatchewan. I like living out here. I had no expectations for it, and it's an awful lot like home. So I appreciate that. I really do. Like, there's people are just genuinely friendly and polite, and like even within brewing, like 95% of industry are right on anyway. But like I feel like because it's so small here, people are especially close, and I'm kind of the outsider, like clawing my way in and trying to meet everybody as best I can, and I've made some friends and I feel really grateful for that, but I think I've still got some people to meet and some friends to make. So
you know what, I have the same feeling about Newfoundlanders. Like,
oh yeah,
when I go there, I'm like, oh man, these are my people. I'm like home. It's
Should
just
we
like
make you drink
home.
a lot of Screech?
I drank a little bit of Screech. I got hit with the paddle. I couldn't say
you
the
were
words.
Properly anointed. Okay,
Yeah.
got it.
Like, Dita is my mealed cock.
And long may your big jib draw.
Yeah,
You got
right.
it. You're there. You got it.
You know, my wife is from the United States, and she said she had experienced something similar, where maybe it's the nature of the size of the cities. Everybody seems to know each other, so it's hard to break in and break through people's shell.
Can be.
It's like, oh, what school did you go to? It's like, well, I'm not from here. You wouldn't know what school I went to. It doesn't matter.
It's like I have to say it differently than I would say it at home because nobody knows it how we say it at home, so I don't know. Yeah. I went to a school out east.
But now you're going to be hanging out with the Lady Rebels tonight.
Yeah.
Drinking that new
I'm really looking forward to that.
guava milkshake. Are you guys going to be doing something with the Ladies Collab Brew?
I don't know.
Maybe in the future?
I would love to. That'd be awesome.
Maybe Vanessa will get you guys in there, get you in there, and just develop some
I think
wacky
you've
recipe.
just signed her up for it, so.
You know, she's going to kill me for telling you this, but she is like super nervous to speak in front of crowds. Like she doesn't like crowds.
That's okay.
So I said to her, just look at everybody and just think you're better than them. Like, just really stinky. Because she's like the nicest person you'll ever meet. She's just never wants to hurt anyone's feelings. And I'm just like, just look at them like they're peons. It's like, you're less than me. I can say whatever I want and you'll just agree with me.
That's terrible advice.
And
I love it.
And she's like, she looks at me, she's like, you're insane.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think she's going to do great. Like, we had a quick chat about how she got it all started, and, you know, you're up to like 30 or 40 members that come on the regular. Like, that's pretty awesome. Especially in such a small place. Like, Regina's big, but it's small, but you've still got a loyal following, and so people are obviously getting a lot out of it, and I think that's credit to her.
It's a super cool vibe in the room. Kind of like Sisterhood of the Traveling Pants on beer. I walked in there just to shoot photos one day, and I was the only guy in the tap room, and it's filled with women, but the energy is like electric.
My, how the tables have turned!
It was really cool to see.
Yeah.
They were so pumped about the beer, and they were eating like really good food, and I was just like, oh, I wonder if I could sneak some of that after the fact.
Nice.
And it was really great. I think it's something neat that Vanessa and her team have built.
Good.
So I think you're going to have a great time.
Sweet. I'm looking forward to it.
Amanda, I want to thank you for coming on the show today.
No, thank you for inviting me.
Rebels, Thank you for tuning in this week. If you want to find the latest news about Rebellion Brewing, be sure to check us out on Facebook, Instagram, and Untapped. I'm going to include links to the new Helles Lager so you can find all about it on the Great Western website. Thank you for joining the Rebellion.